welcome back to another episode of That's Curious. Today we are going to get spooky. I'm super excited because we are going to be talking about ghosts, spirits, demons, entities, and if they're the same, if they're different, because I don't really know that answer. I also happen to be like super into the spooky realms, and I am a very big believer in all things creepy, crawly, spooky, ooky. However, Lloyd, you happen to be on the opposite side of that spectrum. Tell me about it.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm the kind of guy that I'm not going to go out and say yes, there is ghosts, but I'm not going to say there isn't. I know my own hypocrisy, and while I don't necessarily, believe in everything that goes bump in the night as a spirit or a demon, I'm not going anywhere with a Ouija board and tempting anything. I think it's a really good episode. I think we get into some pretty good subjects on like the differences between entities and demons and spirits and all that, and we delve deeper. And I think it's a really good lead in to our upcoming guest. So I think it's going to be a really fascinating episode.
For sure, I couldn't agree more. Make sure to join the conversation down in the comments. Let us know what you think about the ghosts, the ools and ghouls, and if you are a skeptic or you are a believer. Which team do you root for? So join the conversation. We'll talk to you soon.
What's up, everybody?
Okay, so on today's episode, we are going to be talking about ghosts. And I'm super excited about this because there are a lot of people that like to debate whether it is real or a bunch of BS. And I like to think on my end that ghosts are real. I definitely believe in the paranormal. I definitely believe that there are many other realms in like the vicinity of us, and we can't see everything that's at play. But a lot of people are skeptics, and I have a feeling that you might kind of be one. So, tell me your stance, Lloyd. What do you think?
I don't know, man. It's like kind of tough because like part of me wants to believe in ghosts. You know what I mean? I want to believe in aliens. I want to believe in Mothman. I want to believe, there's Bigfoot running around somewhere out in Washington. I want to believe all these things. You know what I mean? And while there is some evidence, particularly in the realms, of aliens and topic today, ghosts, it's hard for me to get on the ghost train, so to speak. But at the same token, like I recognize my own hypocrisy, you know what I mean? As a born again Christian and, follow that theology, it's hard to be like, okay, I don't believe in ghosts because I don't have evidence, but
Right.
I'm down with God, man. And people are like, oh, where's the evidence of that? You know what I mean? It's so like, I don't know. That's kind of like, when we started this podcast, we started talking about different topics and some things we wanted to come up with. One of the deep dives I wanted to get into was the paranormal, man. Like, what's going on? And not only take that aspect of what's going on, but like, why isn't it taken seriously? Like, why don't more people delve into this research? You know what I mean? Like that kind of avenue. You know what I mean? Like, kind of see why, who's doing what, where, why, what parts of the world are seeing what. That kind of dive.
Yeah. Well, see, okay. Here's my thing. I've been watching paranormal shows my entire life, like for as long as I can remember. So I started off with like Ghost Hunters with Taps, then Ghost Adventures. You've got all the paranormal, like Kindred Spirits, Holzer Files, like all kinds of. There's so many of them out there, and I can guarantee I've seen almost every single one in every single episode. Like I was absolutely obsessed with the paranormal for a very long time. And me being a lifelong spiritualist and working in that realm when I used to do tarot and all these other things, like I thoroughly believe that there are things that are with us all the time that we cannot see. And with that being said, like I am walking my path with Jesus and working on my relationship with God and all of that. And so like I think that is a profound part of humanity, is not necessarily you have to be a Christian, but there is like a faith aspect and a spiritual aspect. And within every religion, there are and I don't even like to say I'm religious. I still like to say I'm spiritual. But within every realm of that, like there are multiple entities. You might have demons. You might have all different types of all different types of creatures. And then you have like these mystical creatures people talk about, which we can get into in so many other episodes about those. But I truly believe that truth is stranger than fiction. Like I am one that believes pretty much in it all, And some people might think I'm naive for that, but I kind of take the stance that, like, I don't know, if you look all around you, the world is a little too weird for you to be so close-minded.
Yeah, I mean, I actually wrote about this in a newsletter I posted earlier, just saying about as we started reaching out to different people, and different aspects of curiosity. You know what I mean? Like I said, like we've reached out to. We're gonna have a UFOologist, someone that
Mhm.
spent a lot of time studying aliens. We have another guest coming up that's a paranormal investigator. It's wrote 2 books. But the funny thing, like just from my background with writing for psychedelics, about psychedelics, cannabis,
Mm.
writing about and searching out and delving into UFOs and aliens, writing about ghosts and reaching out to different experts on ghosts, the afterlife, spirituality. These things all seem to kind of correlate, man. I don't know how to explain it. Like, I'm not saying they're all shared experiences because that would be wrong, I guess, to say. You know what I mean? Someone that has, hey, I was abducted by aliens, that story, versus somebody that took a DMT trip versus that story, versus say, hey, I had an experience with an entity or a ghost. While they're all very different stories, man, they all seem to correlate, in the sense that, hey, these experiences are subjective to the person that's, experienced it. To deny it, me just because I didn't have that experience and say, hey, that's not real, you didn't experience that, and dismiss that person's happening. I think, you know what I mean? There's something going on. You know what I mean? Like, I can't say, like, okay, if you go to some haunted house or some place that has some energy and, you go through and you experience, I don't know, for lack of argument, a table screeching. All right, that's going to freak you out and scare you. And you're going to have an excellent story. And that's the exact point, that you've experienced something. Now, there might be a plausible explanation, and then by my research that I've seen, man, that most cases, I would say about 99% of cases, it ends up being a very, hey, there's a reason why this seems haunted kind of explanation, a very logical explanation. However, man, I mean, there is absolutely no doubt that there is tons of articles and experiences that people have put out that investigators have gone in and said, hey, look, I can't say 100% you have a ghost, but I can guarantee you, like, I don't have any logical explanation for what's going on in this presence or in this vicinity.
Right. I mean, even in my own life, like, I've been experiencing what I view as paranormal experiences my whole life. Like, when I was very young and I lived in Tampa, we lived in this house literally on a hill, which is really funny. But we lived in this house, and I was terrified of this home. And of course, like, I was like 5 years old living there, but we would watch, Scariest Places on Earth, right? And that used to be like a big show back in the day. And of course, me being 5, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, this is really scary. But there, I was with teenagers and my mother and stuff like that. And we would all just be like, oh, things are getting a little weird in the house. Like, there was a time, shit you not, that, like, we were watching and a door slammed on the TV and all of the windows in our house slammed at the same time. Like, the wind wasn't like strong enough to just make up and down windows just all slam at the same time. Like, that's freaking crazy. So, like, how do you explain something like that? Or even like, okay, another experience. If we're gonna go down this rabbit hole, I've seen like a lady standing in the upstairs window whenever I was like swimming in the pool downstairs, and that freaked me out. And I tried to see if I moved, if the screen looked different, or if there's something in the window. There's nothing up there. Or we would get like knocks on our door, just me and like my sisters and the boys would be sitting up there, and we'd get like knocks on the door, and we were like, okay, is anybody playing with us or whatever? And the bed, like, we had 2 trundle beds, and one of the trundle beds like jumped up, and they all, of course, all ran out of the room screaming and left my little 5-year-old self up at the top of the stairs. And I was like, what is going on? You know what I mean?
Sacrifice
Like,
shade to
I
the
still
demon.
remember that. Okay, guys, I still remember that. But yeah, so it's just been a part of my life for as long as I can remember. And I'm always like, how do you guys not believe? But I guess there's the whole like seeing is believing thing. And as much as I love science, and I do think that like investigation is a good science, like, you got all the different meters and all the different, tools and stuff. You can Why did I almost say EKG? The EMFs. Jesus. Not the heart. Wow.
You got it, man. You got it.
You
The
got
squirrels
it.
are trying to get you, but you got them. Excuse me.
God, I'm like going down a whole rabbit hole right now. But there, people talking about the EMF and all of that. Like, I think there are true physical sensations that we might get if there is low air pressure or quality of like just the space that we're in. We might get weird feelings, and I think that's just interacting with like our human body. However, I do truly believe that there are things among us, and I will stand on that.
Well, all right, Dr. Alisar Gunn, he posted an article by the BBC, Science Focus, Can Science Explain Haunted Houses? And I'm quoting him, quote, unfortunately, the vast majority of paranormal investigators have been on the pseudo-scientific variety based on incorrect, incompetent, incomplete, or misrepresented science, or invalid due to bias, manipulation, assumption, or omission. In these cases, the presented evidence doesn't satisfy scientific rigor, or can also be interpreted in ways that don't require the paranormal. Other cases can be shown to be fraudulent, so the conclusions and methods of such studies can be ignored from a strictly scientific perspective. That is quoted. Again, BBC article, Can Science Explain Haunted Houses by Dr. Alisar Gunn. I read that, and I went into this, you know what I mean? Like I said, when we started this, and we were gonna ask questions about everything curious, right? Like people that they don't ask. So like I went in with a very skeptic, I'm a skeptic anyway. I'll be real honest. I'm a, if I don't feel it, see it, taste it, touch it, you know what I mean? Don't experience it. It's like, okay, how real is it? But at the same token, man,
we've got a believer. So this is
yeah.
gonna be
Well, the great thing about that, and that kind of leads me into my point, and I'm going to go with, there's two different roads, two paths I'm going to go with you here. I think one, and we talked about this in some of the research we've done, just like our question here is, there's a certain environmental conditions or places that are more susceptible to a paranormal phenomenon or ghostly phenomenon, ghostly spirits. That's A. In conjunction with that, B, I'm very big on perspective. So if you're one of those people that, hey man, I believe in ghosts, and you're open your mind to ghosts, you're going to be open minded to seeing the ghosts. Now, what does that prove? Absolutely nothing. It doesn't prove that ghosts exist or doesn't exist. It doesn't prove anything really. I mean, it proves that that person may be more open-minded or believe more, and when something happens, they're more apt to believe that it's a spirit doing it as opposed to the wind or, maybe the electrical socket doing something or whatever. Okay. However, but that doesn't change the point that there are people out there that are more, shall we say, motivated towards a paranormal phenomenon, man. You know what I mean? Whether that be ghost hunting, driven towards alien research, whatever the case. But like I said, for this particular cast, we're going to stick to ghosts. People are drawn to it, man. You know what I mean? You can't deny that there are people out there. There's mediums. There's paranormal investigators, and the paranormal. You name some of the big shows. If you've watched them, most of the time they're like, okay, this is what really happened. You know what I mean? There's not a ghost. It's just this is the explanation. However, man, for every say 100 that they get and they can explain it, there is always that one. They're like, we have no explanation for this. Science can't, doctors can't, no one knows. So it's like, okay, is there places that can seem to have better or more prone to energy or spirits or ghostly hauntings, in conjunction with, are there people that are more prone to be aware of those ghostly spirits and hauntings?
Yeah, I think about places where you hear the old thing of like water always helps with kind of like amplifying spirits, or like limestone and stuff like that. And you've got whole like limestone castles and places that are close to waterbeds of some sort, whether it's a creek, a river, or whatever. Because the current, it depends on whether you believe in like energy, and then you kind of go down the rabbit hole of like, okay, so if you want to talk about ghosts and whether you believe in them or not, you have to define what they are. And like, are a ghost and a spirit and an entity all the same things? Like, if you believe in the afterlife, if you believe in, say, for us, if we're like, hey, we believe in heaven, and you believe that we have a spiritual body, like, oh, we're a spirit or a soul, and then you can even separate the spirit and the soul.
Well, that's it. Well, that right there. I mean, if is that part of the problem? Is there people out there? Are there people out there that just incomplete no matter what? Because if you would say, hey, there's ghosts, you basically in turn say that they're spirits. You basically in turn say that there is an afterlife, that human consciousness, at least on some level, carries on after death, and therefore you can pretty much destroy, I mean, a lot of people's, whole foundation of belief. You know what I mean? Is that part of the problem, that there are people out there that don't want to believe this just because if they do, it would shake their very foundation of beliefs?
Yeah, 100%. I definitely think that, like, of course, you have the people, and I'm just gonna sit here and say, whatever your belief is, it's not wrong. I'm not it's just, it is your belief. And for me, I think it was always really hard for me when I went through a certain period of life where I was like angry at God, or then I would just be like, there is no God, or something like that. You know what I mean? And I would just be like, looking around and seeing the life of everything between the earth, the people, the animals, all of that. And I would just feel like there is an energy running through every single one of us, every part of us. And then when you go to science and you see these things and you see these like like cells and stuff like that, it's like, I'll have to show that to you. But then there's also like the spirit molecule of like DMT, and it's hard not to believe. Like, just because you can't see the cells in your body, like by looking at yourself, which I know science shows it, but without that, like, you still believed you were a person. Or like, it's just, I don't know. I don't know if that like made sense. My squirrels are definitely in, but there's just a whole, it leads, and it's like a chain of events that it's like hard not to believe that there's something more.
Yeah, it's like, here's the catch-22. Like, I know $1 million exists, even though I've never seen $1 million. Okay, I know it exists. It's not even a question. It's not. I've never seen it. I've never held it. I've never touched it, smelled it. All those things that we use our senses to establish. Okay, but I know it exists, and I also know that while I am I want to say a devout skeptic, I'm pretty open-minded either way. But I will tell you this: while I would say I don't necessarily believe in ghosts, the whole research is compelling. I don't deny anybody's happenings at all, because I don't, you know what I mean? I don't know what happened. And I can tell you this, even as a skeptic, I'm not going to rush out to like a seance or meet a medium and go through that experience. And I'm certainly not going to I'm not going to basically, tempt any entities. You know what I'm saying? Like, um, and I say that in conjunction with, while I've never had a ghost happening, and I'm not really looking for one, I will tell you this, man, and you said it. There are responses, human responses to energy. Yeah, I don't know what to call it. I mean, if we've all had the, hey, I've been watching a scary movie and I feel the back of my hairs, start to go. Now we know logically as human beings that there is no monster going to jump out of the screen and get us. We know this, okay? And there's not going to ghost kind of follow us home from Hollywood and haunt our being, okay? However, man, there is definitely a response to fear, to the mind's basically saying like, okay, man, this could be legit. Like, this is giving me the creeps. We've heard people say that. I got a bad feeling. And these are all kind of tied to a lot of these places that have these happenings.
Yeah. I mean, that just like brought up something. I remember a long time ago, I was hanging out with a family member, and I was about to like name drop, but we don't have to do that. I was hanging out with a family member, and I was sitting there, and I was like turning on one of these horror films, because I used to be like a horror buff, not so much these days, but I was either turning on a ghost show or a horror movie. And she comes out in the living room and she's like, oh, like, you're not putting that on in my house. Turn that off, because that like opens portals for things, and I don't want that in my life. Like, people talk about what you kind of expose yourself to
Yeah.
or what you're consuming. And like, if you're not consuming all of this gruesome stuff or all of this stuff about entities or demons or ghosts or anything like that, then like your mind isn't going to be molded to really like think in that way. And so, like, I just thought it was very interesting that she specifically said that that was like a portal for things to come in. And so then when you kind of think about portals or you think about how we get involved with these entities in the first place, it's like it brings a lot of questions to my mind of like, okay, so when let's bring up spirituality, like when I was doing tarot and stuff like that, and I believed that I was working with God, like was I really working with God or was I working with something else that wanted to play God or wanted to, when you talk about mediums and they know all this stuff, like people are like, are you actually talking to their dead relatives or are you talking to like something that just can know those things and
Mm.
manipulate you? Like that's where it kind of gets like kind of scary for me, where I'm just like, okay, well, I used to run off the fact of being like, if it was evil or if it was bad or if it was a like mean spirit of some sort, like I would know because I know what that energy feels like. And then I kind of got to a point where I was like, well, would I know if they're good enough to, you know, trick me in some way, or you know what I'm saying? Like it's
Well,
just
that's
it's really
dude.
weird.
That's the well the rabbit holes have begun. Okay, couple things that you said that I want to hit on. Um, no, but I mean, like this is kind of like where we, like this is the deep dive, man. You know what I mean? Like from my perspective, and this to give everybody full transparency here. Like the way I believe we are souls in a body. You know what I mean? Like this is a flesh vessel, a flesh mag. Just is something that we move around in to experience this, what I believe to be a pseudo reality. And what I mean by this, when, a dream within a dream, this is pretty much what I believe life to be. It will be, after this, I believe human consciousness carries on. I believe that, our ego dissolves. I won't be known as Lloyd anymore. I won't think myself as Lloyd. I will just exist. However, and just to hit back earlier, man, like, okay, people have had alien abductions. Take that aside. People that have experienced ghosts, people that have had near-death experiences, and people that have like had deep DMT trips where they've seen DMT entities. Okay. Now, all four of these things are curious, compelling, and, for lack of a better term, far out. Okay. But we got to either say, yes, this happened. Okay. This happened, or B, it didn't. Like we that's what we're trying to figure out. Like, did these things really happen? Did these people, when they took DMT, really meet an entity, or did it something that their brain make up? Or did the person that had a ghost experience, did they really have a ghost experience, or was it just they thought that? Because either way, it's really compelling, man, because either A, this is really happening, there are really entities, and DMT is a portal to see these entities. We see some of these entities when we have near-death experiences. Maybe they're aliens, that people have these, alien abduction experiences, and they talk about them. All these things, ghost happenings, hey, I've had these experiences. Whether these things exist, and I say that, just either solid exist, or B, these people are having these experiences and they don't exist, but they're still having these experiences, man. So one way or the other, there's something going on. Either there is some serious psychological stuff going on in human beings where we are compelled to say, yes, aliens exist, DMT entities exist, all these spiritual beings, things exist, and we're just making it up. Or B, they really do exist, man. And there's some, like, people have been trying to tell us about this for a while.
More and more questions when I have these conversations comes up. Like the question that just came up, what does it mean to exist? What does that actually mean? That's like, what is, our verbiage and what we create. However, to go back to ghosts, since this is what we really wanted to talk about today.
Right. Sorry.
No. We're going down a rabbit hole. But this is why we have this, because we're going to branch off into so many things in so many different episodes. So I'm really excited. There's a lot to talk about. So here's how do some people know what they know? You know what I mean? Like, I've done a lot of readings in my life, and I would know things about people that I didn't understand how I, like, knew things. Or I would get visual things that I would be like, this makes no sense to me. Maybe this makes sense to you, or something like that. And it would like have some correlation with something in their life. And I guess you could kind of look at that in a way and be like, well, I mean, take a piece of art. Everybody could look at it differently and they can interpret it, and they can make it personal in some way or another. So then you could just be like, well, my brain's just giving me a bunch of random crap, and, being like, okay, this is for this person, and I'm calling it a stream of consciousness, and this is, what's happening between you and I is that you and I are sharing this energy, and I am getting whatever energy forces, whatever loved one, and whatever spiritual guide, or, is coming through to you. I guess that doesn't necessarily stick with ghosts, but spirits in general, because I just like the word ghost. I mean, you might picture like a sheet and boo or whatever,
Yeah,
but
but aren't they like?
couldn't you spirit?
Couldn't you argue, for lack of better term, spirit and ghost could be interchangeable?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I just kind of feel like it's like earlier when I asked, like, okay, are they entities, spirits, ghosts? Like, are they all the same thing? Now, with like spirits and entities, maybe there might be like a difference, just because I feel like entity could be like an overall thing. Like, it could be, would you call a demon a ghost? Like, you know what I mean?
Well, here's another thing, man. Okay, and that like, we talked about this, and one of the people I've been really just obsessed with lately is Graham Hancock. I mean, just really can't get enough of that dude, man. Just every time I watch something about him, my brain just can't. It just all he does is create he plants questions, and I just keep digging, and all I keep coming up with more questions, right? But like anybody knows him. He goes back in ancient civilizations, trying to figure out where we all originated, what happened, etc. But like, okay, man, like, let's take for example Mothman. All right, that's something we're looking for. We're looking for experts on that. We've been talking about maybe getting somebody on that, doing a show dedicated to that. Who came up with that? Like that's been on caves. That's been so. If it was just a made up story, but a very long time ago, it's not like, okay, if I make up a story and be like, hey, Shay, this thing happened to me, and blah, 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 it's going to be forgotten in a week, if not a day. And let alone, we're talking decades, if not hundreds of years.
Thinking that.
Right,
yeah.
right, man. So, like, there has to be some type of, at least, I don't necessarily want to say concrete evidence, man, but some kind of foundation to keep these stories continuing on, for some of them, for hundreds of years.
Yeah. Okay, so witchcraft doesn't necessarily have to do with ghosts, but just a little small blurb of like, even back to like very, very, very beginning times, which I am, an enthusiast about. However, definitely not an expert, just an enthusiast. I'm still learning, and whatever. But when you think about old spiritual practices, or you think about like the way of life pre-technology, or our version of technology, you think about how much more connected people were with like the earth, and
yeah, right.
and what we feel, and could listen to the plants, could listen to the animals, could listen to and see, the moon, the stars, everything so much better than we do in our modern busy lives. So I can't even fathom like what that type of spiritual connection can feel like, because I have profound things when I sit with God, just in our modern life, with the life that I create with that. However, whenever you're so like, if you weren't so distracted, you know what I mean? If you were not as distracted as we are today, and so like immersed in this like society that we've created that has us constantly going, and like just not able to kind of be within our roots of like what a human really is. Because how many times a day do you sit down and think, what is a human? What am I doing right now? Like, maybe you and I do, because this is what we do, but like, how many times do you take a moment to just take a breath and be like, what experience am I having? Like, not a lot of people do that anymore. And so I just feel like and one, storytelling is like the oldest form of,
Well, I think that definitely goes back to the whole like being open and perspective. Like, if you're in a culture, you know what I mean, where superstition, paranormal, like you take South America, Latino culture, Day of the Dead, superstition's very big in that culture. You know what I mean? It's that it's not even considered like taboo. But like in here in the States, if you say, "Hey, I'm going to have dinner with my dead relatives tonight," people are going to be looking at you like, "You good, man? How's
Yeah.
things at home?" You know what I mean? What's going
Need to
on?
call someone.
Yeah, right. You know what I mean? But I think, I think, set and setting, man. That's life. And I believe that where you grew up or what you're taught definitely helps. But at the same token, man, I mean, I didn't grow up in a superstitious household as far as that is concerned. But I do find these stories and happenings extremely interesting. You know what I mean? That people are having these experiences. These ghosts, paranormal, demon, spiritual. I don't know what label. I don't pretend to be. I don't want to differentiate. You know what I mean? That are happening, and I don't want to be a hypocrite because, like, I always said to people, and I tell people this, okay, and this is the way I believe. People that tell me like, okay, I know God, or I know there's ghosts, or I know, okay. As a Christian, I can say I've never had like what I would say a God moment. You know what I mean? And as far as like, I didn't see a burning bush. I've never seen like a seraphim with a bunch of wings and eyeballs. I've never had that holy awe moment. Okay. I've talked to you about, that prayer I made when I had my daughter, and I had a sense of stillness, man. And I always had that sense of stillness when me and my ex-wife were in that pub saying goodbye, and that dude came up and prayed with us. Didn't see that dude before, never again. And those two instances, other than my daughter actually being born, man, I think those are the three closest to God that I've had. Now,
Right.
I would be naive and ignorant to say that people have not had God experiences, man. I've seen people that were drug addicted, womanizing, drive the Harley 150 down the road, don't give a shit, wake up the next morning, throw it all away, and say, man, I'm turning to God. So like, if there isn't a God, or there isn't a spirit or ghosts or demons or something beyond this realm, for lack of a existence or reality, whatever you want to call it, there's definitely something in our brain then that wakes us up. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't. I don't think anything's arbitrary. I don't think you just out of the blue say, "Hey, I'm going to completely upend my beliefs in life just because."
Yeah. I mean, I've done it, and it's very profound. It's very interesting, and it's like I spent a lot of my life just being not who I am today, and like there's nothing wrong with just calling yourself like a spiritualist or anything. I think there's a beautiful community, and like that's my own personal life does not reflect anybody else's walk of spirituality, but I just felt like I had denied a lot of things and invited in a lot of things that I probably shouldn't. And so yeah, I don't know. There's some interesting stuff, but
And you brought up something I forgot to bring up, to hit back on. The invite was what sparked my brain. You mentioned about tarot and opening portals. And again, that's a twofold argument. You could say, if you say those things have weight, okay, you basically say if you buy a Ouija board or tarot cards or crystals or wands or I don't know, whatever, you know what I mean? What voodoo doll, whatever, I don't know what you call these tools, but if you buy these things, you're basically saying they have some type of power. But yes, I mean, regardless of whether they have a spiritual or some type of paranormal or beyond this realm power or not, they do have a power because there is that, hey, if you believe that this is going to do this thing, or if I believe I get a Ouija board, you know what I mean, and I use it and I believe I can communicate with the dead, you're almost like saying to yourself, yes, man, you're believing it before you even start. You know what I mean? Before there's any, you almost have to come into it with a skeptical mind. But at the same token, I've seen, like I said, many stories, man, when people come in with skeptical minds and they leave different people, like different, like their whole attitude, their whole way of life is changed.
yeah. I don't, I've also heard from some old teachers like anything in your life can be sacred if you make it sacred. And so that takes like a certain belief system. You know what I mean? It takes a certain like choice. Okay, so this is my pen. Now it's my holy pen, and I'm only going to treat it with like a certain type of respect. And when you approach my pen, you gotta like, I know this is kind of like a bad example, but this could be my sacred pen. Like this could be the thing that I like worship with, or if it's just taking something and we have the ability to make it what it is. We can also say that things are bad.
Oh man, no, you're going down the right path there, man, because it then brings up another question that I've had, man. Like, okay, if you say you don't believe in ghosts, let's say like me, I don't believe in ghosts, right? Let's say I don't believe in them, and I full record, I don't know. That's why this whole show is about. I just want to ask questions, man. I have no idea. I don't lean one way or the other, But you have literally thousands upon thousands, if not millions, of people that visit dead relatives, dead graves, mausoleums. Some people have ashes in their homes and talk to their dead relatives. Now, whether that be prayer, just say hi. What again, belief systems vary from person to person, culture to culture. However, I've seen people that will go visit a grave, turn around and say, I don't believe in ghosts. And I just think to myself, well, when you go there and you're talking to a dead friend or relative, what are you talking to?
Right.
Because if you don't believe in that, then you can't hear you. So you're just going now. And I've heard some people say, I just go because it makes me feel better. I'm like, dude, right on. That's fine. That's fine too. I don't. Yeah, right. I don't. No judgments whatsoever. I'm just simply asking, from a perspective point of view, what do people think, or what are people doing? Because I don't know, man. I don't pretend to know. Like I said, my belief is that everything's perfect. Everything is meant to be. Everything will. There is no bad. Everything. It's going along good. But again, man, like I can't sit here and say I've never seen a ghost, so it ain't real. You know what I mean? That would be ignorant. That'd be very ignorant. I think as somebody that's trying to do some, journalistic investigation. You know what I mean? Like I think to say one way or the other, hey, and that's what I'm kind of getting at, man. Like there's obviously something going on,
Yeah. That like my brain automatically went to be like, does the road from my home not exist right now because I can't see it?
Yeah, right.
Like, does anything outside of this space right now not exist until my eyes are on it? Like, that's so crazy. And like, I think, and then here's my other thing. Whenever we talk about, oh my gosh, so sorry. Whenever we talk about, okay, so energy, you hear forever, you learn very early on, or at least I did, energy cannot be created nor destroyed. So if we are energy and we are a bunch of vibrations and we are, our heart's pumping and we're electric, woogie woogie, where do we, like, how do we, this vessel, sure, this meat suit, which some people hate that I call it, but what it is.
That's what it is.
This vessel goes and we pass and we just take our last breath. That energy is now out and about. Like, where's that going? Like some people believe in like reincarnation. Some people believe in heaven and hell. Some people believe that we're just kind of in this continuum. So I find it weird that we can say all that and then we'll have a hard time believing that same energy can't affect anything. It's just
another thing or another issue I have with the afterlife, or in regard to spirits, ghosts, demons, that hauntings. Okay, it's always, it seems like there's always a backstory, and it's always bad. Someone was murdered, someone was built on a Indian burial ground, someone did this, some things that I've found that I'm sure they're out there. I haven't dug that deep yet. I mean, we still got some time to research this before our guest comes on, but I can tell you this: I haven't found any apartments that were haunted with entities. I haven't found any trailer parks that were haunted with entities.
I have a different experience, but
I'm listening.
Well, like one of my old apartments back in Florida, I'm not going to name them, but I definitely, like, when I moved in there, I already felt like, when I walked in, there was already like just feels a little strange. But then you'd be like, well, if you felt strange, why would you get it? Well, because I needed it. Okay, so we'll just say that. I needed the apartment. But after living there and like being in that space compared to my last space, it just felt dense. It felt weird. It felt, and I can usually make anything feel homey. I can make it my space. I can make it, very zen. I even sage. I try to do all things, and it just felt uncomfortable. Like I felt like there was always something like watching me, or just like it just felt uncomfortable, and I just wasn't. It didn't feel good, and no matter what I did to try to make it feel good. And so you could be like, okay, is that a ghost, or is that just there was nothing really wrong with the apartment. It was in the same area. It was the same building even as my last apartment, which is funny, but I transferred to get a bigger one, right? So then you could be like, okay, is it because you have more space and you're by yourself? Like I tried to think of all the things, like to kind of debunk it, because I as much as I am a believer, I also like to analyze situations because I'm an overthinker too, and I want to be like, why do I feel this way? And so I tried everything that I could, and I was just like, I don't know. This feels weird. Like, and then I would hear certain things, and I would feel, like I said, feel like something was behind me, or I would, and sometimes I swear, I think shit moved on me. I'd be like, I know I didn't put that there. Like simple keys, like, or something. Like I know I didn't put that there. Or am I tripping? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it just seems like, there's like this sense of commonality between like with each ghost experience. Not all of them. I mean, like I don't want to use a big paintbrush like that, but like, okay, they usually happen at night. They're in a scary place anyway. Some home that was built in the 1700s. There's some kind of backstory that some guy, off this whole family, or was worshiping the devil, or there's always that kind of crazy side story that goes with these hauntings. You know what I mean? You never. It just. And I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but it's very rare. I see a home that was built in 2020 or 2000s plus that, oh, this is haunted. It's not built on anything weird. There was cookie cutter complex, blah 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 blah. You know what I'm saying, man? Like that's
No, I totally get you.
yeah, like it's always stuff that was scary to begin with. You know what I mean? Like it already had a bad tie to it anyway. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
and that's another thing. Is there, which kind of bring, you brought up early, man, is there bad energy and good energy? You know what I mean? I mean, I personally believe in duality. I believe there is a good and an evil. I believe there's a male and a female, black and white, life, death. It seems to me the life seems to have a balance. You know what I mean? Not one more or the other. You know what I mean? Everything stays in tune and keeps going. So that being said, man, after we humans leave this world and become whatever we become, if there is life after death in the realm of, energy doesn't get destroyed nor created, and we carry on, does that mean that if you were a bad human in life, are you therefore some kind of benevolent spirit and want to cause harm to people? And after that, you know what I mean? Like that's a serious question to ask. You know what I mean?
Dude,
Like
I would love us to have a demonologist on, because I want to know, like, I don't invite that, okay, into my life.
no, I wouldn't invite any of that.
Like, I just want to be like, what is it? What are they? What, like, and I ask that because I've had some extremely peculiar dreams, and we can get a whole episode on dream states and stuff like that. But
Yeah, we need to find an expert on them too.
dude, I don't know. It's very, here's something I'll go with, which I also used our good old friend ChatGPT and was like, what's the difference between a ghost, spirit, entity, and demon? So ghost, the definition is, a ghost is typically considered the lingering essence or energy of a deceased person. Ghosts are often tied to specific locations or people and are thought to manifest due to unfinished business, trauma, or emotional attachment. Some of their key characteristics are seen as souls or echoes of a dead person. They're often associated with haunting or apparitions, and may be residual or interactive. For a cultural perspective, most cultures view ghosts as neutral or benign, though their presence can be unsettling. So that's just a ghost. For a spirit is a more general term referring to a non-physical being. This could include human souls that have moved on, such as ancestors, or non-human entities like angels or nature spirits. So that's very interesting, because they would kind of like hold There's more to it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there's a ranking system, it seems.
Yeah, there's like a hierarchy of like spirits.
Which, dude, that's funny you bring it up about angels because I just looked that up. I mean, like, that's the whole idea of the archangel Michael. There's 3 of them in the Bible that were. You know, there's only 3 angels named in the Bible. Did you know that? Do you know the 3 angels named in the Bible?
No, I'm literally I have
Would you like to know them?
had bits and pieces of the Bible throughout my life. I'm on my first sit down to read through the whole thing. So yeah, no, give me some juice.
I've never read through the whole thing, but I will tell you there's only 3 names, 3 angels in the Bible that are named by name. First off, it's Gabriel.
Yes.
Archangel Michael. And would you like to take a guess on the 3rd?
Satan.
Very well done, dude. Well done indeed. Yes, ma'am. Yes. Yes. Man, I thought I would have stumped you on that one, man. I thought I even got my mom on that. I was like, she's like, I can't name the 3rd. I'm like, he's the most prized angel, man.
Listen, just because I haven't read the Bible through and through doesn't mean I haven't done my studies. Okay, like I said,
No, I didn't know that. Yeah,
life. So
that was crazy, man. Like, there's a ranking system.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so some characteristics, key characteristics of a spirit. They're a broader category encompassing positive, neutral, and negative entities, often connected to guidance, protection, or messages from the divine, and not necessarily tied to death or even an earthly existence. So they could have never been here to begin with, or are here now because they weren't created here. Some cultural perspectives are that spirits are widely respected or worshipped in spiritual practices like shamanism, animism, and various pagan traditions, which paganism is something that I was always extremely curious about. And I looked into like my Celtic heritage and stuff like that, which is something that I still feel very strongly about and is part of my walk. So, and then 3, the entity. An entity refers to any non-physical or supernatural being, regardless of origin or intent. It is often used as a neutral or broad term to describe beings whose nature is unclear or undefined. Some of their key characteristics can be human, non-human, or even alien. They could be benevolent, malevolent, or neutral, and commonly used in paranormal investigations to label unknown presence. So, okay, you're telling me that if I say I feel an entity, it could be like an invisible alien hanging out? Is that true?
I don't know, man. I mean, like, okay, like, if anybody's watching that's done, if you ever read, like, on DMT, the spirit molecule, yeah, I mean, like, some of the stories, like, that people, like Joe Rogan, when he talked about his one experience, he had, like, jesters give him the finger. Snakes are very, like a snake, like the snake slithering is very common. It's a shared quote-unquote hallucination. And that's, so, like, okay, either A, this molecule, DMT, automatically makes humans' brains, hallucinate the same shit, or B, these things exist, and, this is a quote-unquote portal, or, these molecules are portals. So if, maybe we link in, tarot, Ouija boards to connect with the paranormal, or, ghosts or entities of that sort. Maybe the same way psychedelics like psilocybin or DMT are linking people to the spiritual world, man. I don't know. I don't pretend to know, but, like, it wouldn't, like, if somebody said to me, hey, 1,000,000%, man, if you take DMT, you will link to the spirit world, you'll see the real spirit world, these are real things, and you can hang out with them. I'd be like, yeah, it kind of makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I get it. Yeah, it wouldn't shock me.
Yeah. As somebody who has thoroughly studied, these greater plant medicines and teachers, like, and I know a lot of people that work with them regularly, and I very much so believe that we have plants on this earth that bring us to the spirit world, and that will give us what we need and not what we want. Like that, they're big, they're intense, but rightfully so. They were created, and in my personal belief, they were created for that. They were created.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think anything is on this planet for no reason.
Yeah, I agree too.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I don't believe
there's
in anything arbitrary.
no, you didn't just happen to come upon ayahuasca or mushrooms or wachuma or anything like that, and then some. Like, there's so much. You have all these plant teachers, and if you believe in a source, or even if you don't, if you just believe that we are just humans on this planet, there's got to be a why somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, why did that, like, protozoa, or why did that, like, very beginning thing morph into what it is, and how have we evolved? Like, even if you believe in evolution, there's always a why, you know? So,
That's what I'm saying, man. Like, you talk about, like, okay, we've been using psychedelics as a species for before written language. Okay.
mm,
And we've been talking about ghosts since before written language.
mhm.
So, yeah, you have some people out here like, okay, yeah, if you take a bunch of psychedelics, you're going to see ghosts. And I agree. You'll see entities, ghosts, spirits, beings. You'll have an experience. That's the point of them.
Mhm.
But you can argue about whether or not they're real. That's an argument in and of itself. Or you can argue about whether the experience happened. And the experience 1000% happened to the individual group of people. I mean,
Mhm.
in our research, man, we've come up a couple stories, like that one in Texas that's on Netflix, that they had over 30 people seeing these UFOs. Like, you telling me 30 people just got together and said, hey, we're going to have a mass hallucination, or we're just going to go in and lie? They saw
Right.
something, man. Something went down. I mean,
Yeah.
you gotta validate that. I'm not saying it's a UFO. Okay, I'm not saying they saw a UFO, but they saw something. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Just like if you go and you take DMT and you see a bunch of jesters giving you the finger, does
Mhm.
that necessarily make sense? No, not to our fragile minds. You know what I mean? Any more than the dreams that we have make sense all the time. But, like, I don't know if this really correlates, but I feel I want to bring up this point. The way I tell people, man, if you're trying to understand it, it's like this: go out and go to an ant that's on the sidewalk and explain what it's like to be a human being, and have that ant go back to his colony and explain to people what he saw, and expect what do you think the ant colony would think? They're like, dude, what are you talking about, man? What? There's these big giants that just walk around and what? You know what I
And
mean?
they decided to talk to you?
Right. You of all people,
You
Ralph.
of all people? Why? Come on, Bert. Like,
Yeah, birth ant. Come on, man. But
aw,
that's what
what?
I'm saying, though, man. Like, a is those experiences, are they happenstance? Like, I just stumbled upon DMT and went to this realm at this time, or because you've heard experiences there, like, all right, we've been expecting you. Just like, you take with ghosts, man. There's certain people that just seem to have experiences, man. They go to a certain place, they get that feeling, or whether something's tied to them or a house that they're in. I mean, I've seen some stories where people move into a home, they weren't even religious, atheists. They go in, this place is haunted to hell and back. Investors come in, they're like, yo, we can't answer this question, but we suggest you just leave. They roll out and never hear from them again. That's their whole story in life. You know what I mean? But so something is at least compelling and driving enough, whether somebody believes or not, that they're like, hey, I'm not saying this shit exists or not, but I'm not taking any chances. So
Right.
therefore, in and of itself, doesn't that give it validity?
So one, it came up when you were talking about the snakes and stuff like that, where I was like, okay, so are these experiences on these plant medicines universal? Because you can think of it in a way of like everybody has their personal experience and you get what you need from them. And that's like your journey, your path. However, then you do have these shared experiences.
Yeah,
And I
right.
can say this from sitting in like a ceremony myself, where, even when I didn't partake in the medicines and I was just in the ceremony, there is a way that the energy in the room collectively goes together. Like, there's a way that all like shifts and that all moves. And sometimes when you're doing like a sharing circle, somebody may have been seeing something that you were feeling and seeing, and like you really don't talk in that space. From experience, like you can take breaks and stuff, but most people don't talk throughout that whole time until it's the sharing at the end. And for a group of people to have something very similar come through for them, and there be actual themes to these ceremonies that like you just, like, how does that happen? first of all? Like, how did that doesn't make logical sense to me where that can happen. So if a bunch of people are seeing snakes all at the same time and they're like, whoa, yeah, I saw that too. Like, okay, very interesting. And then like, does validity only come from numbers? Like, does something only happen because multiple people saw it? You know, like, okay, so historians or scientists, especially historians, will talk about, okay, well, they have, and I'm not a historian, so don't quote me on everything, but I do know from like things that I've watched that it takes a certain amount of like firsthand accounts or witnesses or something like that for us or historians to be like, okay, we could take this as like legitimate evidence. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Even for the walk of Jesus, if you wanted to say that, they're like, we have this amount of people who said they saw him, so like there's a likely chance that he could have, is a real person. Or if you take something else, like if you want to go Alexander the Great or something, like so many people saw this event happen, so we know it happened that way. But if one person had a story, they would be like,
Yeah, right.
you know what I mean? So why is it that we only put validity if it's a mass thing?
I would like, I mean, it'd be amazing to have him on. I don't think he'd ever come on, but Dr. Strassman, they wrote the DMT, the spirit molecule. Dude, his book was so compelling just because here you had people taking the same molecule. Not everybody had the same experience or seen the same entities, but there were shared experiences as far as like seeing the same shit.
Right.
And that's why I'm saying, like, you go to, okay, like, all right, we talked about, we talked about some different places that were haunted on the East Coast, the Eastern State Penitentiary in Philadelphia.
Okay.
Widely known in Pennsylvania to be haunted. Like people go there for that reason. Like it's very well known to be haunted. They want to get scared. Yeah. So my question, I mean, it's not okay. It goes back to as we started. It is a scary place. It is very old. It has a lot of bad history behind it. So it makes absolute sense that okay, yeah, this place. If there's places on Earth to be haunted, this would be a good front runner for a place to be haunted, right?
Right.
But the same token, like you go in with that attitude, like you go in knowing, okay, so we're going in with that perspective.
Mm-hmm.
However, that's the one part, but the other part is you have more than one. You have multiple people saying, "Yo, dude, I saw this, I felt this, I heard this, I smelled this."
People that get scratched and touched
Right,
and
right,
stuff like that.
man.
How do you explain
Right.
that?
Right.
Like,
And then,
okay, let me just put here. I do know with shows in Hollywood or things that are being produced, sometimes people can just do shit to make it more interesting. But if you're having a first-hand account with somebody and you're like, yo, I'm in this jail, I'm doing a tour or whatever, and like you see somebody go like, ow, like what was that? And no, they didn't bump anything. Like no, and you lift up their shirt and you see 3 scratch marks and you don't know where that came from. How do you explain that? How do you say, oh, that's not something like that's physical freaking evidence in my opinion? And homeboy didn't just like scratch his own back. You know what I mean? Like
right.
I don't know.
And man, it's like, I mean, I know that we're trying to look for, an exorcist or demonologist, so I don't want to turn the show, but at the same token, man, like, I don't know how many, I know the Catholic Church performs a multitude of, investigates multitude of, possession accounts each year. Like, no, like multiple. Like, yeah, right. So now most of them are dismissed. I mean, again, just like with haunting stuff, it's there's logical explanation. Someone's sick, someone's taking the wrong medication, having some issues, whatever, man. I mean, there's there's a multitude of files, I'm sure. But at the same token, man, even the Catholic Church has been to exorcisms and admits that this person was possessed. Like that's by their own account, like not like it's. You can look it up. Like this person was possessed. So either A, factually, they believe, and I would assume all Catholics believe that there's possessions, right? So if there's possessions, there's got to be spiritual entities that are bad.
Mm-hmm. I have the definition of a demon pulled up right now. Like, I was waiting for a moment to read this, which is perfect. So It says the definition of a demon is considered a malevolent, non-human being, often associated with darkness, chaos, and evil. In Abrahamic religions, demons are fallen angels or spirits opposed to God. Other cultures may have similar beings with different origins. Some of the key characteristics are actively malicious and destructive, may seek to harm, possess, or corrupt humans, and often associated with fear, manipulation, and negativity. In a cultural perspective, while primarily found in religious contexts, examples being Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, or Judaism, forgive me. Demons also appear in folklore, mythology, and occult practices. Some traditions, like certain pagan or occult paths, interpret demons more neutrally as powerful non-human entities. So, some people consider demons as just dense energy.
Yeah.
Being like the heavier form. So you got your balance between heavy and dense or light. That's another thing. When you're like going through like depression, anxiety, and all these other things, you feel like you're fighting a lot of demons. And like that's a whole thing I want to go through with somebody, especially a demonologist, and just be like, spiritual warfare or mental health. Like I want to talk about that.
The spiritual versus biological would be a good, you know what I mean? Like, but no, man, I don't know. I mean, like I said, like, and this, for regards to the show and the research that I've done and what I've, we're just opening up a can of worms here, and I know that, but like, I don't know, man. I haven't seen anything, every story that I read that had some validity, just intrigued me more, and that's pretty much the case. Like, okay, which is why, we go down these and do these shows dedicated. I've come up with absolutely no solid answers as whether ghosts exist or do not exist. Mm-hmm. But what I will do is say that I won't dismiss people. I can't say to somebody that says to me, hey, man, I was living in this place and this kept happening and this kept happening and this happened. And when I moved out, my life got better. Whether there was an actual entity causing harm, or whether that person believed it and therefore that was what's happening, regardless, to me, something was happening. Right. You know what I mean? So like, rather than arguing, I can argue, or we can argue back and forth as a species and say, yes, this doesn't exist or does exist. I think the more compelling thing is the experience is happening.
For that person, it was very real.
Right. That's what I'm saying, man. Right.
It was their reality. Okay, so here's a question for you. Earlier, you stated that you're not entirely closed off to the possibility. However, you also don't invite it into your world by any means. So would you be open to doing a paranormal investigation yourself, like with people, to, put yourself in an experience to even see if it's possible that it's real? Or are you just
like an experienced paranormal, like an experienced paranormal investigator?
Yeah, like if you went,
dude, absolutely.
Would you go with them?
Yeah, absolutely. Heartbeat. I mean, it'd be an honor.
Considered like inviting it into your world, or would you just be, you know what I mean?
I think you're inviting your world regardless, man. Like whether you want to or not, if you're going to go in and go down these rabbit holes, you're inviting it. And I think the best way to approach it is as a skeptic as much as you can. You know what I mean? I think we all come in with bias regardless. You can't help that. That's human nature. But go in with as an open mind as much as possible and be like, okay, man, I'm not saying I believe it one way or the other, but I'm going to go with these people and see what we see, and experience what we experience. And I think like for a lot of people that do that, man, I think some people go around, and for some people it's a very boring night, nothing happens, and like, this is a bunch of bullshit. And I think that's probably 90% of the time for most of these people, man. They go to some place, find out somebody just wants a little bit of attention, they're freaking out. Maybe it could be anywhere from they're smoking too much meth to, you know what I mean? Like, got paranoid schizophrenic issues or paranormal issues. I don't know. That's what I'm basically saying. Like, it could be all happening, but I think for the people that do these investigations, I think they had an experience, man. Something happened. They're like, yo, it could be something as little, I saw a cup move. Yeah. And that just took them down that rabbit hole, man. And they dedicated decades towards trying to, investigate these. And I think my thing is, like, that's what, again, the purpose of this show is, I don't think these people should be brushed aside, and be laughed at or scoffed or not taken seriously. I mean, we have people that have PhDs that are going to be coming on our show that, that have told us, like, some people don't take me seriously. I'm like, listen, man, you gotta, if you can't answer it 1000% yes or no, then you're valid, man. You're up for debate at least, and I think there should at least be questions.
No, I agree with you. One of my, I say recent, but I've watched the show for a few years now, but it was like Destination Fear, and it's turned into Project Fear on YouTube, so shout out to them. They are amazing investigators. I love them. They have had some very interesting experiences, and again, yes, it's a show, but they built a platform where I trust them, so like I don't feel very fishy about them, and I think they're really cool. So shout out if y'all ever want to meet and come on the show, like that would be so cool. Okay.
Dude, that'd be Rob.
Dude, that'd be so cool. I want their merch. Anyway, I'm gonna stop here. I'm girling.
It's all right, man. You can do that.
I've been rocking with them for a hot minute. So I was gonna say they've had some very interesting experiences, and they're very raw and real. Okay, so we're doing overnights. Like the reason that they did it was to test their fear and see how far they could go, see if they catch anything in the meantime, see if it's psychological. Like, and that's why I really like it, is because they took a very psychological approach to it. Yeah, there is a sense of like pushing yourself and just being like, I'm in this situation, and like, am I freaking myself out? Am I making this up in my head? Is this really happening? And some things, like a voice calling back to you, is not something that you can really just
right, dismiss. Yeah, how can you dismiss that?
There's an episode where they like, I think it's Chelsea that's like down in a cellar, I want to say, and like she hears an old lady say hello, like honey, if that happened to me, I need to change my pants. Like,
I'll be real honest with you, man. If that happened to me, I mean, I'm 46, but I would run very, very. I mean, like Usain Bolt would have a hard time keeping up with me if that happened to me. Like, I'd be like, dude, I'm out. Like, I'd be running and smiling like he did. Like, see you guys, like, just beat feet. But even then, that brings up another question, man. That brings up, if you did have that experience, how would you react? Because it seems to be that, and again, whether it's people chasing a Bigfoot, people chasing aliens, people chasing ghosts, usually they had some kind of compelling experience, some kind of, that they believe, very factual happenings. You know what I'm saying? So like, something's going on. And in conjunction with, like you said, man, you brought up a good point. Like, is it biological, the heightened state of fear? And, you don't need a substance to hallucinate or create a reality. You know what I mean? You don't even need, heightened state and fear. You can start thinking shit's happening. You can go into like, they have those depth chambers, like that. Yeah.
The like floating things.
Yeah, man. You get in them things, man. You'll hallucinate. Yeah, you'll hallucinate. You'll make some. Your brain will create some things. So like, okay, so there's that. Is it okay? It's just your brain. So if that's the case, and it's just your brain making up shit, and it's just, oh hey, none of it's real. It's just your brain. Why is it doing that?
We've got so many like. Being human is so interesting. Like the human mind is so interesting to me. I'm like, why do you work the way you work, and why do you work so differently for every person? And like, then you got to think of like cultural surroundings and what's, how you brought up earlier, what people are taught. And I don't know, man. I just, ghosts are like, it's a simple question, do you believe in ghosts? But then it's so not. Like, it's so not.
But like, okay, you take a bias, all right? Like, you can say, okay, well, you're going towards a haunted place. You think it's haunted because of the way it looks and the atmosphere, everything's set up that way, blah, 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 blah. Okay, cool, man. But like, I've seen, what's your excuse for a child? A child's not going to go up to a haunted looking house. The fight or flight response we're born with, man. I mean, like, we know, or it develops very rapidly, that we know, like, hey, man, by the looks, sounds, taste, smells, and everything of that place, it has some bad shit going on with it, and I'm just going to avoid it. So can you, like, is it spiritually driven? Is there a human response, energy that we're receptive to that basically says, hey, man, there's some nasty stuff or some stuff that we're not used to? I won't even say nasty. There's some energy here that is not of this world.
Right.
Okay. There's people out there, man, that respond to that. People that aren't even, quote unquote, aware of that ability. I believe we all maybe have that, but that's what I'm saying, man. You either you're going to dismiss it and say that these things don't exist. It's all in your head. Okay. I'm willing to listen to that, but why are we putting it all in our head then? Why are we as a species doing this? And then to put so much weight behind these entities, ghosts, spirits, demons, etc.
No, I like first you're talking about children. Children are very interesting. Like I love the little beings, but like so you think about okay, mediums, they're obviously really sensitive. Like and I do believe that there are far more sensitive people than there are not. Then you can go into like, is your pineal gland calcified? Or you're not. We can go to that whole thing. But then children, they don't have a reason to lie to us. I
Right.
mean, like, you know, they could. We often say they just have very vivid imaginations. They have imaginary friends. They're doing all of this. And like, granted, we were all children once. Like, you might have been more creative and you weren't taught by the world to think of things certain ways yet. So you're just here, right? What would be the reason for a child to be like, I'm seeing things in my closet. I'm seeing things in the basement. Or, oh, did mommy, do you see that girl? Or like, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
that stuff weirds me out. And I guess people would be like, okay, so like, do you really believe that there's monsters under their bed? If they're like, I think there's a monster under my bed. Well, no, maybe not like from Monsters Inc. or any of those that are like going to do like the scare, the screams and get the whatever. But like, there might, I mean, potentially, you don't know for them. And then you think about it, like, what is a monster to them? Can they describe it? Like, are we
Yeah.
asking them questions? Like, is there something that they saw that was making them scared of something? It's just very interesting psychology.
Well, I mean, like, there's two things that, like, you know, like you said, that like the psychology of it. If it's just okay, it's your brain. Let's just say that, man. And I'm cool with that. Like, there's a couple. I don't want to call them diseases, but perhaps diseases or issues. Like, okay, you take bipolar schizophrenic people, okay, that, you know, talk to people, see people that aren't there, you know, and we medicate these people and they can, you know, some people can function well, some cannot. Are those people that they're seeing, is it just their brain's not normal, quote unquote normal? Or is there something going on, you know? And B, like the other part of that is, what about night terrors? People that suffer from those. Is it just your brain at night causing this problem to you? Or is there some type of energy, man? Like, it's easy for me to say, okay, man, it's your brain. You know, here's the explanation. Here's the biological, what's going on. You know, these endorphins aren't firing, and this is what's happening in your brain, blah, 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 blah. Take this pill. And we as a Western society will say, yep, okay. But if you were in, say, Peru, you go to the doctor, they might say you're at the wrong place. You need to go down to the witch doctor down the street, and they might have a ceremony with you. And that might actually work a lot better than, you know, you being on pills for the rest of your life. I'm just saying, man, I don't know. That's really where I'm at. I don't know. But I can tell you this, like, there's a lot of similarities in these happenings. A lot of similarities. You know, and don't mean to sound like an experienced investigative journalist, but in the stories I've read with people that experience hauntings that are legitimized, or at least they can't unlegitimize. Let's put it that way. They couldn't say that it was fake. You know, they were like, we can't prove them wrong, but we're not saying they're right. You know what I mean? Those stories, man, there's a lot of shared similarities for these, and they're all around the world, not just in the United States. So either we're basically saying these people are all quacks, you know what I mean, and it doesn't exist, and this is all biological, or B, man, we have to have a deeper conversation. Be like, man, is there some shit? Maybe there's some shit, and maybe we ought to spend a little bit more time thinking about it.
Oh, for sure. I know, like, when we go into our episode about aliens, which is going to be really cool, I'll probably be talking about, like, ancient aliens and how they, you know, thought that there's very similar sightings or, like, artifacts left around to, like, let you know that people were saying similar things in those times. And, like, I'm sorry, you were not just taking a flight, you know, and going to the area and sharing stories.
Right.
That took a really long time. But to keep it within, like, the ghost realm and stuff like that, I have read multiple articles, me being like a very big mental health advocate. I have my experience with mental health, and I've read a lot in my spiritual time trying to understand why there are certain things that I personally have gone through and why there are certain things that I have seen or felt or, yeah, with the night terrors and insomnia and sometimes other things. I've read articles by shamans that have been like in different parts of the world, like this is not taken care of with these types of medications. And there have been shamans that have come over to the Western world and been horrified at how we treat people with mental health disorders, and how we institutionalize them or how we over medicate them or how we treat them in general and have stigmas and all this stuff. They're like, these people are actually very much so like cherished and valued in our communities because they have insights to things that the rest of us aren't and can't be aware of. And so like they'll have these people and do ceremonies with them and they can help them with these things that feel like attachments or, we'll take messages from these people that are feeling like they're really getting information from higher realms or even lower realms. And it's just the way we look at things sometimes in the West, I question if it's just too much of like, we know everything and anything outside of that is wrong.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's really the attitude. You know what I mean? I think.
And I don't live that way. Like, I don't believe that way. Like I said, I'm very much so a believer. And I know that kind of is like taboo in the culture that we live in, at least specifically like you and I being here in America. Love America. But, I do think there are things we could be more open-minded to. And especially with mental health, like I just really think that we should not be so quick to label people as screwed up or, like the stigmas that I have been through or that I know so many other people go through. Like, we're very, very, very quick to be like, oh, you don't think like me? Well, there's something wrong.
There's something wrong with you. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah. So if that means that believing in ghosts and thinking that, I saw something sixth sense wise, you know what I mean? Like, I believe they're here, and maybe AI might be able to help us.
It wouldn't shock me, man. It wouldn't shock me that there's going to be a program designed to help facilitate contact with other realms, creatures, the afterlife, something to that effect.
Okay. Have you ever heard of like the whole military? There's like there's some story, and I don't know it verbatim, but it was like something along the lines where they're like military people who ended up putting on their like red glasses to be able to see and stuff, and they swore that they saw like things flying around that were not human. It's super crazy. We'll have to dive into that. Stay tuned for another episode, but anyway, this has been a great conversation, and I know technically we didn't come up with any specific answers, but we sure got to ask a lot of questions, and I love having that.
Well, I want to go ahead and shout out. She'll be appearing. We're not sure when we're going to be airing her, but just real quick, we'll have Robin Strom Mackey on the show coming up. She is from the Delaware Paranormal Research Group. She is the author of 2 books, Anatomy of a Ghost, A Guide to Analyzing the Dead, and On the Hunt for the Haunted. Hopefully she can share some experiences that she's had, and I don't know, man, maybe she'll invite me up, Shay, and I'll go on one of those ghost hunts, and I'll be like, I'll come back a changed man and be like, dude,
well, you're stuck here.
Listen what I have to tell you.
Right. Shit got crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's been fun as always, so thank you so much. I love going down these rabbit holes with you, and I am looking forward to next time.
Yeah, see you next week, man. It was a great conversation. Thank you all for joining in.
All right. Peace.